I want you to imagine pulling out your phone right now. You point the camera straight up at your ceiling fan, and you record a totally meaningless, blurry, like 2-second video of the bleed spinning. You hit upload, and then, boom, instantly, 1 million subscribers.
Oh, yeah. No strategy, no hashtag optimization or
With
anything.
just an immediate avalanche of viral fame for absolutely nothing.
It's basically the realization of the ultimate modern fantasy, but, delivered with zero friction.
Exactly. And welcome to today's deep dive. We are jumping into a really fascinating, deeply satirical piece of source material today titled The Viral Collapse When Everyone Becomes Famous.
It's a great read, really thought-provoking.
It really is. And the core mission of this deep dive is to explore this crazy thought experiment. Like, what happens to society if the internet just breaks and hands every single person on Earth 1 million followers on their very first try?
Yeah, and the text suggests that human infrastructure would just completely collapse in, less than 24 hours.
24 hours. So we are going to trace this timeline today, from that initial euphoria to the physical breakdown of society, and kind of look at what this scenario reveals about our total obsession with attention.
Right.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the immediate aftermath of universal virality is, well, hilarious, but it also destroys the whole concept of earned fame.
Oh, absolutely. The floodgates just swing wide open. The source talks about a random guy who uploads a video titled, "Testing My Microwave at 3 a.m."
Which is just nonsense.
Complete nonsense. But bang, 1 million subscribers. And then there's this grandma who accidentally uploads that 2-second ceiling fan video you mentioned.
Yes, the ceiling fan.
Right. And she doesn't just get 1 million subscribers, she gets brand deals. People are making super dramatic fan edits of her ceiling fan.
I mean, that is just so wild.
But the craziest detail the source notes is that her comment section is totally flooded with people calling the fan underrated.
Wait, they're calling a literal ceiling fan underrated.
Yeah. And the word underrated being applied to a blurry household appliance, I mean, that's where the satire exposes a very real psychological mechanism. We engage in this thing called cognitive offloading when we browse the internet. Our brains are constantly looking for shortcuts to figure out what is valuable, just to save the mental calories of actually evaluating the content ourselves.
Oh, I do that all the time. It's like seeing a massive line out the door of a restaurant and just instantly assuming the food has to be amazing without even bothering to look at the menu.
Precisely. It's the
Yes.
exact same heuristic. The source points out that we have been so conditioned to apply the language of prestige and artistry to anything that possesses a high metric of success.
Right. The numbers dictate the value.
Exactly. The moment you see 1 million subscribers next to an account, your brain circuitry is just rewired to assume inherent value. You look at the ceiling fan, you see the subscriber count, and your brain rationalizes the dissonance by deciding, oh, this must be avant-garde art.
Wow. So we just completely stop evaluating the reality of the content.
We do. We start evaluating the data attached to it instead.
You know, it reminds me of the mechanics of an economic crisis. Like, imagine if tomorrow the government just deposited $1 billion into the bank account of every single person on Earth.
Right. Everyone's rich.
Yeah. At first, everyone is throwing parties, trying to buy sports cars. But within a single day, a loaf of bread costs $50 million. If everyone is a billionaire, money becomes completely worthless.
Because the currency itself has lost its utility as a mechanism of exchange. You're describing hyperinflation, essentially.
Yeah.
But the source is applying it to social capital. If everyone is a millionaire in the currency of attention, the metric completely loses its ability to signal quality or status.
Which introduces a massive, immediate logistical nightmare. I mean, if all 8 billion people on Earth are suddenly celebrating their newfound influencer status.
And managing brand deals.
Right, and reading
Yeah.
their fan edits, who is actually left to run the physical infrastructure of the world?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the author is illustrating a pretty terrifying fragility in our daily lives. The physical infrastructure exodus in this thought experiment happens instantly.
Yeah, the examples in the text are so vivid, like teachers just walking out of their classrooms in the middle of a math lesson.
Yeah.
But the schools aren't just empty because of the teachers. The students are completely checked out, too, just filming videos titled Day 1 of Becoming Famous.
And it scales up from there. You've got doctors abandoning scheduled surgeries.
Which is terrifying.
Or the super relatable detail, you sit down in a chair for a haircut and your barber just looks at you and says, "Bro, I'm focusing on content now.
Just leaves you with half a haircut. And you can't even order food because the delivery networks completely crash. The text says drivers are just pulling over to post videos with the caption, POV delivering burgers emotionally.
It's absurd, but it highlights something profound. We totally take for granted that the global supply chain relies on millions of people waking up every day to perform labor that is repetitive, often really stressful, and honestly, largely invisible.
Very true.
The underlying social contract is that you trade this unglamorous labor for physical survival, like a paycheck and a modest place in the community.
Right.
But this scenario asks, what happens when a seemingly superior alternative becomes universally guaranteed?
The fame.
Exactly. If the absolute highest tier of social validation and perceived wealth is suddenly granted to you just for existing on camera, the physical mechanics of society instantly stop making rational sense to the individual.
I totally get that, but I do have to push back on one of the extremes the source brings up because it really tripped me up.
Oh, which one?
The author describes commercial airline pilots stopping mid-flight, getting on the intercom, and announcing to the passengers, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. I mean, I recognize it's a satirical exaggeration, but is the premise fundamentally flawed there? Like, are we really supposed to believe that human beings would prioritize digital validation over immediate, literal life or death physical survival?
Well, it seems totally absurd until you view it through the lens of evolutionary psychology.
Okay.
Human beings evolved in small tribes,
Yep.
right? And our brains are hardwired around Dunbar's number.
Which is the idea that we can only really know about 150 people.
Exactly. We can only maintain stable social relationships with about 150 people.
Mm-hmm.
In that ancient environment, status and validation from the tribe literally meant access to food, shelter, and mates.
Ah, I see.
It was the ultimate survival mechanism. If the tribe liked you, you lived.
So the brain processes social approval not as a fun luxury, but as a critical component of staying alive.
Exactly. And then you introduce a digital interface that mainlines the approval of 1 million people directly into the brain's reward center.
Mm-hmm.
The dopamine loop just completely overpowers the amygdala's threat detection. So the pilot in this scenario isn't just ignoring his physical survival. His neurological hardware has basically been hijacked. It genuinely believes that this massive, unprecedented wave of tribal validation is a higher, more urgent form of survival than keeping the plane in the air.
That completely reframes the whole scenario for me. Your primal brain literally thinks getting a subscriber is more vital than gravity.
Yeah, pretty much.
Which perfectly explains why the physical world just grinds to a complete catastrophic halt. Governments panic, restaurants, banks, sanitation, everything just stops. You'd assume, given this massive exodus, that the digital world becomes a sort of utopia for these creators.
You would think so.
But the source points out the exact opposite happens. The digital world becomes a completely unnavigable nightmare. Because everyone is famous, nobody is actually famous.
Right, because the sheer volume of data hits a critical mass where consumption becomes mathematically impossible. When everyone is constantly broadcasting, there is literally no one left to receive the broadcast.
The numbers thrown out in the text are just staggering. 400 million podcasts launching simultaneously.
It's dizzying.
900 million reaction videos. You open your feed, and it's just a barrage of mundane nonsense, like toddlers reviewing toothpaste, a guy live streaming himself sleeping for 19 straight hours.
Oh, and don't forget the PDF tutorial.
Oh my gosh, yes. There's this brilliant detail where someone's dad uploads a video called How to Rotate PDF Tutorial, and he gets 1 million subscribers, and the comments are just screaming, UNC so underrated with the fire emoji.
It's hilarious, but the underlying technical mechanism of a recommendation algorithm fundamentally fails in this environment.
How so?
Well, algorithms function by finding patterns in scarcity and differences. They weigh engagement metrics to sort the wheat from the chaff, so to speak.
Okay, they push the good stuff to the top.
Exactly. But if every single piece of content has an identical, artificially inflated metric of 1 million subscribers and massive engagement, the neural network has no weights to assign. It literally cannot differentiate a cinematic masterpiece from a dad's PDF tutorial.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because the algorithm loses its ability to filter for quality, creators realize that traditional content just doesn't work anymore.
Nope, not all.
To stand out from the other 8 billion famous people, they have to escalate. And the source describes this dark mutation in human behavior, One guy filled his entire house, floor to ceiling, with baked beans.
The baked beans, yeah.
Another guy live streams himself arguing with a mosquito for 9 straight hours. Someone uploads a video called "I Taught My Goldfish Taxes," and it pulls 100 million views. It makes me think of an evolutionary arms race, like, the extinct Irish elk.
Oh, the species that developed those massive, like 12-foot wide antlers just to attract a mate?
Yes, exactly. The giant antlers had zero practical utility for physical survival. In fact, they became a fatal liability. It made it harder for the elk to move through the dense forests, which ultimately contributed to their extinction. They mutated their own bodies purely for the sake of attention.
That's a perfect analogy.
And in this digital scenario, the algorithm is the new environment.
And the creators are growing massive, completely useless digital antlers just to survive it. They are mutating their behavior into pure, unadulterated absurdity.
Yeah.
What we're witnessing here is the terminal stage of audience hyperinflation. When a tutorial on rotating a PDF exists on the exact same algorithmic playing field as a man arguing with a mosquito, reality itself loses its baseline.
The bizarre literally becomes the baseline.
Exactly.
It implies a complete detachment from the physical laws of the universe. I mean, if you are willing to ruin your home with baked beans for views that don't actually translate to tangible resources, you are no longer living a human life. You are merely performing the simulation of one.
Which introduces the final, honestly, bleakest stage of this viral collapse. This evolutionary arms race of absurdity stops being a temporary performance.
Oh, no.
It becomes a permanent state of being. The very architecture of human interaction is fundamentally altered.
Society essentially devolves into one giant, inescapable content farm. The source details how genuine off-camera human interaction just goes entirely extinct. People no longer even say hello when they run into a friend.
No, the default greeting becomes, "Wait, bro, let me start recording first."
That is so sad.
The mediation of reality becomes absolute. An experience is rendered entirely invalid, psychologically, unless it is captured, uploaded, and verified by the digital tribe.
It gets so extreme that babies are coming out of the womb, and the very first audio stimulus they receive isn't their mother's voice.
It's the intro.
Yes. It's someone pointing a ring light at them and yelling, "What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel."
You have an entire generation whose conceptual framework for existence is inherently performative from the very first second of life.
It's a terrifying thought. But amidst all this chaos, the source delivers this incredible, totally ironic climax.
The ultimate system reset.
Yes. Through the deafening noise, the endless podcasts, the baked beans, the screaming somewhere, an anonymous person uploads absolutely nothing.
Nothing at all.
Just a black screen, no title, no thumbnail, an empty void. And somehow, defying all the algorithmic logic that drove society to the brink of insanity, this completely blank video becomes the most watched piece of media in human history.
What's fascinating here is the psychology of sensory overload and habituation.
Wait, tell me more about that.
Well, when every single stimulus in an environment is turned up to a maximum threshold, when every color is a neon strobe, every sound is a scream, and every action is an extreme, life-threatening stunt, the neurological receptors eventually just go numb.
They just shut down.
Exactly. The brain can no longer process or parse the data. So in a society drowning in absolute, unrelenting overstimulation, that black screen functions as a profound palate cleanser.
It's the visual equivalent of walking out of a chaotic, deafening heavy metal concert into a completely silent, pitch-black room.
That's exactly it.
The sheer absence of noise is the only thing your brain can actually register. It leaves you with this massive question, though. Is the viral success of that black screen a sign of hope? Is it a collective subconscious rebellion where humanity is finally demanding peace and rejecting the content farm? Or is it the ultimate cynical peak of consumerism where we've devoured every possible human experience, so we just start consuming literal nothingness as the newest viral trend?
Well, that ambiguity is really the crux of the entire thought experiment. Through a cynical lens, the black screen is the final frontier of commodification. Society commodified its skills, its relationships, its dignity with the baked beans, and finally it commodifies the absence of content itself.
The void just becomes another product to consume.
Precisely. But an optimistic reading suggests an inherent biological limit to human endurance. It implies that deep down, beneath the evolutionary craving for status and the dopamine loops of the algorithm, there is a fundamental, inescapable need for stillness.
I need to just breathe.
Right. The popularity of the black screen could be a society-wide, unconscious cry for help, a desperate yearning to just turn the screens off.
Just a billion people staring at a dark rectangle, finally experiencing a shared moment of absolute quiet.
Yeah.
So, what does this all mean? We've mapped a journey from a grandma's ceiling fan breaking the internet to the total collapse of the global supply chain to a society communicating entirely in YouTube intros, culminating in a silent black void.
It's been a wild ride.
Truly, the viral collapse utilizes extreme, almost hallucinatory satire, but it serves as a very uncomfortable mirror for the mechanics of our current digital reality.
Because the scenarios described, the barber abandoning his trade, the hyper-escalation of extreme stunts, they're merely accelerated versions of dynamics already at play today.
That's the scary part.
The boundary between living a life and broadcasting a life is already highly porous. People are already optimizing their mundane daily routines for algorithmic consumption. The source merely removes the friction and just fast-forwards the tape to its logical conclusion.
It really forces a hard look at your own relationship with the digital feed. I mean, think about the last time you were out to a nice dinner or at a concert or witnessing something beautiful. How much of that experience was genuinely for you?
Right.
And how much of your mental bandwidth was spent prepping the angle, the lighting, the caption for an audience, even an imaginary one?
The thought experiment dismantles that persistent illusion that more attention equates to more value. It mathematically demonstrates that when everyone holds the spotlight, the light loses its physical power to illuminate anything of substance.
The $1 billion in the bank account just turns into worthless paper. Which brings me to a final thought I want to leave you with as we wrap this up. We've spent this entire deep dive exploring a hypothetical world where capturing an audience is guaranteed, which ironically makes the concept of an audience entirely meaningless.
Totally.
And in that chaotic world, a completely black screen of void became the ultimate luxury. So perhaps as we accelerate into an increasingly loud, increasingly recorded, hyper-visible future, the ultimate status symbol won't be your subscriber count.
No, it won't.
It won't be how many people are watching your every move. The ultimate flex might just be having the power, the resources, and the absolute privilege to remain completely anonymous, to possess the ability to choose not to be perceived at all.
The ultimate luxury of simply leaving the camera off.
Take a moment today to enjoy something without recording it. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive, and as always, keep exploring.